that understood? So for you to understand it more clearly, let's try another example. Let's have this example. X squared minus 81 is equal to 0. So the equation is written in general form wherein linear term is not present. So according to the steps that we have to follow, the first thing we are going to do is to move the constant term to the right side of the equation. So if we're going to move that, we come up with x squared is equal to 81. Then the next thing we're going to do is get the square root of both sides of the equation. So we know that the square root of x squared is x. Then 81 is a perfect square. So we are going to get the square root of 81, and we know that the square root of 81 is 9. That is the principal root. But also, square root of 81 is also negative 9. So that's why when we find the answer for the solutions of x squared minus 81 is equal to 0, the answer will be x is equal to positive and negative 9. So you want more examples? Let's try this example number 3. Example number 3, the given is x squared minus 625 is equal to 0. Same example, similar examples to number 1 and number 2. Again, move the constant term to the right side of the equation. Then, get the square root of both sides of the equation. The square root of x squared is equal to x. Then, 625 is a perfect square. By the way, paano nga ba natin malalaman that a given number is a perfect square? So, all the numbers from 1 to a number from 1 to infinity, all the numbers from 1 to infinity, if you're going to multiply it by itself, the answer there is a perfect square. Example, 2. 2 times 2. So the answer is 4. So the number 4 is a perfect square. Ibig sabihin, when you get the square root of 4, that is equal to 2. Because that is the number na minultiply mo sa sarili niya. Example, 10. 10 times 10, 100. So 100 is a perfect square. The same way that 625 is a perfect square. So the question is, what is that number that when multiplied by itself, the answer is 625? So you'll find out that it is 25. So the square root of 25 is, the square root of 625 rather is 25. That's a principal root. But since it's quadratic equation, so we are also going to consider the negative root, which is negative 25. So that's why solutions to x squared minus 625 is equal to 0 is, or are, x which is equal to positive and negative 25. So hopefully naintindihan na natin. But what if the case is like this? Look at example number 4. So if we're going to apply by using the first step, by moving the constant term to the right side of the equation, we come up with x squared is equal to 45. Then the next step is that we are going to get the square root of both sides of the equation. So on the left side, when we get the square root of x squared, the answer is x, you know that because it's a perfect square. But on the right side, it's 45. So there's no number that when you multiply that number to itself, the answer is 45. So there's no number like that. So instead, what we are going to do is to get factors. Get the factors of that number. 45. What are the two numbers that when multiply, the answer is 45? Ano ba yung mga yun? It can be 15 and 3. But if you're going to look at 15 and 3, both numbers are non-perfect squares. So ibig sabihin, you are going to factor that number wherein one of its factor is perfect square. One of its factors is a perfect square, while the other is a number, uh, the other is a prime number or composite number whose factors are prime numbers. So, factor that number wherein one of its factors is a perfect square. So, what would be the right factor? That's 15 and 3. What else? 9 and 5. So, in 9 and 5, meron ba doon sa dalawang numbers na yun, na kapag binultiply mo yung isang number sa sarili niya, ang sagot is kahit ano sa dalawang numbers na yun. So, 5, wala naman, di ba? How about 9? So, we can multiply it, number 3 by itself. The answer is 9. So, if you find out that number, so that means you are dealing with the right factors. So, 45, the right factors would be 9 times 5. So, let's write first the one which is what we put as the perfect square. So, in that case, 9 is a perfect square. So, what are we going to do next? Since 9 is a perfect square, so we can find its root. So, what is the square root of 9? That is positive 3 and negative 3. But what will happen to 5? The 5 will be left inside the radical sign. So that's why we come up with an answer which is x is equal to positive negative 3 square root of 5. Because since 5 does not have any more factors wherein one of its factors is a perfect square other than 1, then that 5 will stay inside the radical sign. So it's just saying that the solutions to that quadratic equations are irrational numbers. So that's positive negative 3 square root of 5. So naintindihan ba yun? So para sa maintindihan natin, let's try another example similar to it. So let's have example number 5. So that's x squared minus 75 is equal to 0. So move the constant term to the right side of the equation. Then it will become x squared is equal to 75. Then get the square root of both sides of the equation. So when we do that, on the left side, the square root of x squared is x. We know that it's already x. But on the right side, 75 is a number wherein there's no numbers. But when there's no number, when you multiply it by itself, the answer is 75. So the same way we did on number 4, we are going to factor 75, wherein one of its factors is a perfect square. What are those factors of 75? Let's say factors niya 15 times 5. Look at 15 times 5. 5 is a composite number. 15 is a 5 is a prime number. 15 is a composite number. Ibig sabihin, it has factors. So, but the factors of 15, which is 5 and 3, are both prime numbers. So that's why 15 and 5 are not the factors to be used as factors of 75 for us to solve the quadratic equation. Let's find out other factors. What else? What other factors of 75? Of course, i-less na natin 75 times 1. What's the other factors? That's 25 times 3. Look at 25 times 3. 3 is prime already. 25. Yung 25 ba, mayroong number? 25 ba, may number na kapag 25 sa sarili, ang sagot ay 25? Yes. And that is 5. So that's why the right factors for 75 are 25 times 3. So 25 now is a perfect square. So we know that the square root of 25 is positive 5 and negative 5. Then since 3 is a prime number and there's no factors of 3, or any one of its perfect square other than 1, then 3 will be left inside the square root sign. So that will come up with an answer which is x is equal to positive negative 5 square root of 3. Hope, nawanan nyo na yun. Hindi natin